Good morning. Welcome to my Facebook Live this morning. This is the third in our series of using Stampin' Up punches. The first one covered some, excuse me, of the basics of the punches, how to use them safely, and how to do standard punching and a few different techniques. Yesterday's live was all about using punches in a different way to make different shapes other than the one that the punch comes with. So how to make the shapes bigger, hi Carol, and how to make the shapes smaller from the same punch. And today I thought we'd do some flower making using non-floral punches. Now obviously, as Stampin' Up, we do flower punches to match usually our stamp sets. So for example, we have this one here. Hi Jeanette, hi Tracy. And this one punches out the daisy, and we have two of these. We have the large daisy and the small daisy. So you could just punch that out on its own in some card to do some pretty daisies. Oh, excellent, Yuta. That sounds good. I'm looking for the small one, but I can't just see it in front of me. So you can literally just turn it over, take your piece of card, and I've just got some assorted card here. Morning, Moretta. And punch those out. Oh, good. I'm glad it worked today, Jeanette. That's what we like to hear. So you can punch out multiple flowers. Okay, and obviously these are designed, they can work together, so you can layer them up like so. You can make 2 or 3 layers in different colours. Morning, Baz. And you can also ink the edges up to make them look a little bit more realistic. So some of the standard things you would do is you can take a bone folder, for example, or you could use a pen and just crease the leaves, okay? And this is a bit like curling ribbon, if you've ever done curling ribbon for presents, where you hold the ribbon between your thumb and a surface and then put pressure on it. So we're doing this here. You want to be relatively high pressure, but not so much that you tear the card. Be a bit more gentle if you're doing it with papers, for example. So morning, Lynn. You can see the difference here between the punched shape and the punch shape that I've done the curling with. Now what you're doing when you're doing that curling pressure is you're breaking the fibres down, and therefore that will stay like that. Obviously if you put it in an envelope it is going to flatten to an extent, but if you have curled it then it's very easier for it to curl up, as opposed to just trying to do this. And you can see the difference. Okay, all you're doing is creasing it. Okay, so take your petals and then just use that pressure against it, and you can curl them, you know, different ways, like so. So that takes your flat flower and make it look a little bit more interesting. So what I can do is layer these two together like so. Okay, and to make them look more realistic again, you can take a sponge. I'm sorry about the colour of this. This is the colour from something else has obviously run onto the sponge when I put it in the washing machine. So it is clean, but rather tainted colour. I think I might have to treat myself to some new ones. Morning, Babsy. So what you can do is take either the individual petals or the whole flower, and then just use some ink over the edges. So if I do it on one and not the other, hopefully you'll see the difference. So you only need very basic supplies to make some fun flowers. Okay, so I don't know if you can see if I put them on the white. Morning, Jacqueline. So this one here, I've just tinted the edges. I don't know if you can see, it's not necessarily very clear against that one. And then you can pop these layers together. And obviously these layers can be different colours altogether. So I can just put that together with a little bit of glue or a glue dot, for example. And you can layer this up, you know, 3 or 4 times, just using different colours. And if you use wet glue, when you put it on, that gives you time to sort of manoeuvre this into place. Now, one of the nice fun little embellishments we have are these Perennial Essence floral centres. So they're hard to describe them really. They're fuzzy centres, so they're a bit like a fabric, and they are self-adhesive. Now I'm pretty sure that these are retiring, so I will check for you, but these have a little self-adhesive dimensional on the back. Just peel the backing off and you can put that in the middle and create a fun little flower. Okay, do bear in mind that this has some height to it, if you can see that, and therefore that probably wouldn't go through as a standard letter. You would need to, if you're posting it in the UK, that would need to be a large letter because it's quite tall. So that's using our standard punches, and we have lots of different shapes. So we have 2 different sizes of daisies, and we've got lots of other ones as well, some of which are retiring. But what happens if you haven't got a daisy punch, or you don't want to buy a punch just for flowers? Maybe you don't do a lot of flowers. What you can do is really simply improvise with some other punches. You could, of course, cut these out as well, if you're any good at cutting, just with a pair of scissors. And obviously if you have dies, a lot of our dies have shapes and things, but we're talking about just using punches this week. So what you can do is have a look at the punches that you've got. For example, this is, as you can see, the double balloon punch. It punches 1 large and 1 small balloon. Okay, now forget about this bit and see those as petals. Okay, individual petals. So if I punch out, and I've just got some, as I say, some offcuts of card here. So if I punch these ones out, they are going to fly a little bit. Let's do 3 sets, like so. I still haven't managed to break a punch for you, so I can repair it. Okay, so we've got these ones here. Now you don't even need to cut the ends off if you don't want to, because what we can do is put those petals together, okay, to make it into, so this looks like, what's the word, what are those slow growing things that I always manage to kill? Oh, name's gone. It'll come back to me in a minute. I am going to trim those bits off actually, just because I can. So you could use an oval punch if you have an oval punch. No, it wasn't clover. It's the ones that are really delicate. Orchid. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you. Orchid it is. So I'm thinking flowers. Clover flowers are sort of fine, but you could make clover leaves, couldn't you? So what we can do is put these together to make an orchid flower. and we could put another layer on the inside. Okay, now a bit like we did with the yellow daisies, that's very flat and uninteresting. So what we can do is sponge them first to give a little bit of colour. Sorry, I just had a message that interrupted. There we go. So, move that trim out of the way for the minute. Grab another sponge. So this colour is Purple Posy, and I've got Highland Heather here, but obviously you could use any sets of colours. Just grab a piece of scrap paper, pop underneath. Just going to use some grid paper that I folded up. Okay, let's take that one out of the way. So these are just, hello Marianne, lovely to see you. There we go. So I've got some what were balloons that we are going to turn into an orchid. So I'm just going to ink up the sponge, and then you can either hold it in your hand or you can do it on the paper. Morning Carol. And add some detail. So you can add the detail to the edge and also to the centre. So I think orchids tend to have quite strong centres, don't they? And then I'm going to give it a bit of a creasing using the bone folder. Now, I have to say that I suspect none of these are my original ideas. A lot of them have been around for a long time. Stampin' Up demonstrators have had punches for a long time. Hi Jacqueline. And therefore I can't lay claim to any of these being my original ideas. Morning Molly. So I'm just using the sponge and Highland Heather around the edges. And for those of you that have just joined, I punched these out using the balloon punch, this one here. I've cut the little ends of the balloons off, and I'm going to make these into a flower. So if you don't want to hold it up, what you can do is put it on your paper and rub it that way. You could also use our sponge daubers if you don't like to hold sponges or you don't like to get your fingers dirty. That's quite a good way of doing it. Okay, just going to put some on the edge here. Now orchids can't... Oh bless you. That's okay Molly. You haven't missed much from the beginning of this one. I hope you found yesterday's one interesting. Okay, so just some edging. Morning Scott. Lovely to see you. Okay, so there I've got some petals. They're going to become, they were balloons but they're now petals. Okay. And what I'm going to do is position these together, sort of in packs of 3, like so. Oh, thank you, Carol. Now, these are a bit flat and boring. And as we said, what we could do with this one is crease it up a little bit. So we can do exactly the same thing with this. So what I'm going to do... Hi, Claire. Nice to see you. Is again use a bone folder. Now if you don't have a bone folder to hand, you could use a rounded pen, anything like that. You want a sort of round barrel, you don't want a sort of like a pencil where it's got lots of sharp edges. Okay, and the bigger the barrel, the wider the curve. The smaller the barrel, the tighter the curve, as you can hopefully imagine. So just adding that little bit of interest makes a real difference when you compare it to these three here. So if you are making flowers, the more time you can spend with the petals, the better. Sun's coming out, so I hope it's okay and not interfering too much. So glad to see the sun though. So warm. I'm going to take my cardigan off now. Okay, so to put these together, I'm just going to use some wet glue. Let me put that on that ink pad so I know what colour it is. And my recommendation for wet glue is using a silicone mat. Okay, because the nice thing about the silicone mat is when it's all dry, it just peels off. This is what I was using yesterday, and this is our wet glue. And you know, normally our wet glue just goes sticky, doesn't it? Oh, good. But there, it just brushes off. So you could, this is our silicone mat that we sell. Highly recommended. You can use it for lots of other things as well. It's £5.50 and it's perfect for gluing, because you can literally leave products on there to dry and then away you go. So I'm going to put 3 together to start with. Just going to use some glue and put some in at the centre of each one. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue on there and then pop this one on top like so. Put some glue on here, if you can see that, and on there. So I've got my sort of triple petal. And now I can add these on the inside. So I can either do them in layers or I can do this as a separate set, which I think it's what I'm going to do. So exactly the same thing. Bit of glue on there. That one on top. And a glue on the back. Now if you don't want to get too covered in glue, use your bone folder or some tweezers or a pen or something to push these layers down and hold them. Okay, you don't have to hold them for very long. Our glue does stick fairly quickly. Okay, and obviously you could sit here one evening doing a whole load of punching, and then you could do all the shading, and then you could put them together. Okay, so I can just peel that off. I'm not worried about the glue that's on there, and layer that in the centre. Okay, I could either put that flat on with glue, or I could add a dimensional if I wanted a bit of height for the centre. So I'll put a dimensional on. Just going to put one of these. So this is a double-sided foam pad, and I can pop that in the middle like so. Okay, and there you've got, so I'll take it out of the light a little bit, out of the sun, an orchid. How to think about that. Now obviously you could put something in the centre. You could do a tiny circle in the centre, or you could, you know, cut out another piece to go in the middle. You could use one of our centres here. Not that orchids particularly have that sort of centre. Okay, I think I'll put that one on there because that's quite cute. Morning, Lynn. So I'm just going to take the backing off that. So you get 18 of these in a pack. They're really, really good fun. I'll just put that in the centre, like so. There we go. So that's an orchid, or equivalent, from our balloon punch. So you could do this with ovals as well. Okay, you could do it with a circle and just cut a point, and that'd be another way to do it. And obviously you can go back, you could have this as a different colour layer, A lot of orchids have like a really striking centre. There's nothing to stop you stamping this. A begonia. Ah, yes, it does. You're right. Thank you, Moretta. So not I've only made an orchid, I've made a begonia. Thank you. And obviously you can have a whole load of these, and you could have them flat, great for decorating boxes, or you could put them in a frame, or you could attach them to a skewer, a wooden skewer, have them double-sided, for example, or even triple, and then put them into a pot and have them as a display. Okay, so we have our daisy here, just using our standard daisy punch, and then this one is created using the balloon punch. The next one I want to do is a hydrangea. Now, anybody guess what punch I'm going to use to make the hydrangea petals? Just going to clear this away while you're thinking about that. Any guesses? I know it takes a minute for everything to catch up. Put those there. I'm going to use some green for the leaves. Okay, so I will show you. So I've started Christmas baubles. No, that's a good idea though. In fact, the Christmas baubles would work for this style, wouldn't they? Mini flower punch? No, this is all these ones are all non-flower punches. So would you be surprised to hear I'm going to make it out of a heart punch? And not a small heart punch, a large one. So, in our current catalogue, in the Valentine section, we have this set of 2 punches. You have a plain heart and you have a scalloped heart. So I'm hoping you can see that okay. Now the scalloped heart is perfect for leaves. Okay, so I'm going to show you those first, and then I'll show you how to do the other petals. So the secret to this is that we're only going to use, if I use this bit here, the top half of the punch. Okay, and we're going to use a scored piece of card. So let me just take this piece of green and let me just trim that edge off. So this is Granny Apple green, but just use any green that you've got. So this is for creating leaves, and all you're going to do is score this like so. Okay, happy you can see that. I'm going to fold that over and then just cut this roughly to size. You don't need a huge amount of card to do this. So basically you've got a piece of card with a score line. It doesn't have to be exactly in the middle. Okay, and then what we're going to do is turn our heart punch over, take the scored part of the card first and place it into the punch. And then what we're going to do is, let me do a bit further along, otherwise I'm wasting my card, and I'm going to get one set of leaves, is bring the fold down below that point of the heart, okay, and punch it. And what that does is it produces this leaf shape, or 2 leaves. So you could cut these up and have 2 leaves, okay, or you can leave them together. So let me do that again. So I've got a fold here. Glad you're liking. position it in the punch. Now obviously the bigger that is, the bigger your leaves will be. Oh, hi Marlene, lovely to see you, my darling. There we go. So those are a bigger leaf. Okay. Now with these leaves, you can crunch them up. You can use the bone folder as we did before to bend them up like this. And you want the leaves to look a little bit more battered. You don't want them to look pristine. Okay, so if I turn that over, if I put it behind here, can you see? Makes quite a nice leaf. So the bigger the section you have, the bigger the leaf will look. So for example there, how effective is that? So if I cut this in the middle, I can attach it to the back of this. And they're quite attractive little leaves, aren't they? So I'm just going to use a bit of glue on here. Oh, thank you, Lynn. I have to say, not my original idea. I saw somebody do it with basic heart punches. I decided that with the scallop it would look nice. Just going to put that on there. Let's put another one on the other side. Obviously you can make those quite a bit bigger if you wish. You do get a different shaped leaf. The bigger it goes, obviously the leaf shape changes. So let's have this one up here. Like so. And obviously you can, in the same way, you can use your sponge dauber. You could stamp on it to get some different variation of the leaf. Like so. Gonna leave that one there for the second. If I bring that down, there we go. Whoops. Okay, so here we've got some leaves. Now I'm going to show you how to make, in the same way, how to make some hydrangea petals. I'm sure there's other flowers as well that this would work for. So I'm going to do the same thing. This time I'm going to do it with the plain heart punch. Now obviously you can also use the heart punch to create petals by just having multiples of those. So exactly the same thing. We're going to pop that in. Okay, and then pushing. So there's one. And let's do another one. So the main thing is that the fold line is below the point. And there we have two. Just work with that. So can you see how you would get a hydrangea shape from that? Okay. Let's just see it, that my leaf might be, oh no, not too big at all. So what I'm going to do is do something with this to make it look a little bit more realistic. Hi Isabel. So hydrangeas tend to be pink, don't they, or blue. I've got some blue to hand. I thought I had, but I've got some pink. That will do. This is Flirty Flamingo. Oh, my pleasure, Jeanette. It's nice to get more things out of your products, isn't it? Right, let me tip these onto here. So Isabel, we're doing flowers with non-flower punches, with the exception of this flower here. So I can just tip the edges. Hi Jane. I love it. Now I've got the crease on the inside, but you could make the crease on the outside, of course. Okay, do this one as well. Like so. Hi Alexis. Okay, so as much or as little daubing as you wish to do. Let me move that out of the way. And then we can put these together. Now what you can do is do a little bit of creasing. You can crunch the leaf up in your hand, and I'm going to show you this in a bit more detail on the next one. Or you can just use your bone folder. Okay. You can also stamp on here. It's quite effective with some sort of nondescript images stamped on there, even things like text and things like that. So what we can do is put these two together. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of glue in the centre, like so. Pop this one on the top, and as I say, if you don't want to get messy, just use your bone folder or tip of some scissors or some tweezers, anything like that. Okay. And then what I can also do is use brads for the centres. Now I think all of our brads are retiring. I know that these mini ones have certainly retired. Let's just use a mini one. Oh, let's get one with a straight leg. Which is a shame really, because brads is just such a useful little tool. So what I'm going to do is just put something in the centre. Oops. So I'm just using our sponge mat. Sadly, that has retired. Gutted. And not available anymore either. Okay, so I've just created a hole in the centre, like that. I'm going to pop my brad through the middle. Okay. And now I'm going to add my flowers behind. So I can ink up my leaves, I beg your pardon. I can ink up my leaves as well if I wish. So I hope everybody's going to be punching later and making flowers. I can create flowers like this, but don't ask me to create them in the garden. Okay, so I'm just daubing the edges with a little bit of, this just happens to be pear pizzazz, but just for a bit of interest really. Okay, now one of the other things you can do is add a bit more interest to this leaf. So you could use a pair of tweezers, for example, and just press down to create the veins of the leaf, if you can see that in there. Or you could use one of our piercing tools and do the same sort of thing, either pressing it in like so, or you could wrap the card around it. Basically you're just creating a bit of dimension and interest, like so. Okay. Just ruffling the edges, quite useful with those scalloped edges. You can sort of push those in like so. And now we can pop a hole in the centre of that and put the hydrangea flower all together. Now this leaf is probably a little bit big for the hydrangea, but hey ho. So I'm just going to pop the brad in like that. So if you haven't got brads, you can use, if you get them at a stationer's, if you get to a stationer's, the little binding, I'm trying to think what they're called. They have got a name, haven't they? Can't think what they're called. Anyway. Bless you, you should have those already. I'm sure you've got a heart punch somewhere. So there we go. And obviously with hydrangeas you would have a complete mass of those together. And what I was thinking might be nice, and I might do this after the live, is to stamp the hydrangea from Beautiful Friendship as a background, and then have some of these, maybe smaller ones, in a corner. Okay, so I might do that after the live, and if I do, I will put a photograph of it up here. So that's another sample. Let me just bring these down here. So we've got a hydrangea type. We've got our orchid. And obviously we've got our little daisy. So what else we can do? So the obvious one with the heart punch, and you can use any size heart punch, is to punch out a whole series of these. And each of these are petals. So let me grab... I've just got some Poppy Parade card here. However many you want. This is a great way of using up strips of card. So obviously what you can do is create... This is where your 4-leaf clover could come in. Oh, well, dies will work, won't they, Isabel? So you could create a flower that way, and then if you've got smaller ones, they could go inside. You could also create them this way, like so. Maybe 5 would be better. Like that, and put a centerpiece in the middle. So there's lots of different things that you can do, especially with heart punches. And if you've got different sized heart punches, I've only got these two, or if you've got dies, as Isabel says, then you could do a whole series of different flowers. And if you Google Stampin' Up flowers, or flowers from heart punches or something, you'll get lots more ideas. I've only literally just touched the surface of those. So how about a rose, everybody? One of my favourite flowers. Let me just put some of these punches away. I did add a photograph yesterday of my punch cabinet. Right, let's have a look. So for the roses, we're just going to use a circle punch. Hi, Linda. So any circle punch will do. Okay, I'm just going to bring these down so Linda can see what we've been doing. Been making flowers. Linda's not a big floral person, I know that. I won't be offended if you stop watching, Linda. But we do have to make cards for people who do like flowers, don't we? So this is a 1 3/8 inch punch, but you could use any circle punch. Morning, Linda. And let's do this colour, Highland Heather. We don't see many roses in this colour, I'm sure. Okay, so I'm just going to punch do 4 or 5. Okay. Now if you want an old-fashioned looking rose, you really want to be able to scrunch these up. Ah, good girl, Linda, good girl. Hi, Joe. So what we're going to do is scrunch these up, is actually wet the paper and scrunch them, because if you just scrunch them like this, they don't really give. All right, looks a bit of a mess, doesn't it? Hi, Julie. So what I'm going to do is spritz these with some water. So I am just going to grab another piece of paper to absorb the worst of the water. So don't do this on your best cabinet, okay? Did I have 5? I did. Okay, so all I've done is I've got my circles. Hi, Brenda. And using one of our spritzers, so you get a pack of 2 of these for $2.75. I'm just going to, and this has got water in it, has actually also got a little bit of glitter in it from our shimmer paint because it was left in the bottom, but you can just use water. So what I'm going to do is just wet these like so, turn them over, and then wet the other side. You want them quite damp. There we go. Hopefully, yep, it's not gone through to the bottom. Just going to put these on here for the minute, and we're going to scrunch them up. And so by doing this, what we're doing is again breaking the fibres, and you want to really be quite harsh with them. They're almost dry too much already. Okay, so the nice thing about our card is that the colours won't run if you do this. If you use cheaper cards, sometimes the ink can come out. So you want to scrunch them up like that. I love doing this technique. Everybody goes, oh no! Okay, scrunch them as much as you can. And what you're doing, in the same way as using a bone folder, is you're breaking the fibres. And because it's damp, it's going to sort of hold that position when it dries. So I'm going to open them up a little bit. And there's quite a few different flowers you can do with this technique as well. So it's amazing, these are dried already. So you do want to use water. You don't want to use alcohol for this technique, because the alcohol just evaporates and doesn't make any difference to the fibres. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to layer these together. Okay, now you can use different sized ones as well. If you want to get a really full blossom, use some large ones and then some smaller ones, either in the same colour or something different. And I'm going to do all 5 layers, why not? Okay, so I've got these all scrunched up. I'm going to use my pokey tool to poke a hole roughly in the centre. I'm going to work my way through all of that. Nearly. It's getting there. There it is. Now you can glue these layers. I prefer to use a brad. So I've got a hole going right the way through the middle. I'm just going to grab a brad from here. This is a brass one. Pop that in the middle. Open up the legs at the back. That sounded bad, didn't it? There we go. Flatten that. Okay, and now you've got your flower, and what you're going to do is take each petal or circle and scrunch it in. Okay, so you've got one and then the next one. So you can see how you'd build up a flower. I mean, you could have literally 10 or so layers. Okay, and I'm just taking each one and scrunching it in. I start from the middle because I find that easier, like so. I hope you can see how that's coming together. Let me just build this one in. And you could do scallop circles as well. You don't have to have plain circles. If you didn't even have a punch, you could just literally cut a rough circle. And you get what could be either a rose or a sort of carnation centre, like so. Okay. My blackbirds are back for the bees. Alright, so what I'm going to do is add a leaf onto that to show you how I did the leaves, for anybody who didn't see earlier. I'm just going to fold a piece of green card in half. Just score along there. So I should use the bone folder, not my finger. and use a heart punch, which I put back, and position the fold just below this line here. Now the smaller the gap there, the smaller the leaf, the bigger the gap, the bigger the leaf. Okay, so I want fairly small size here. It's gone right onto my windowsill, excuse me. Okay, so here is my leaf, and I can treat that exactly the same. Okay, so I can spray it. Let me just bring back my protective layer here. So I've just got spritzer and some water. Now this is stunning if you add some of our shimmer paint, because then you get sparkling flowers. Absolutely sparkling. So I'm just going to scrunch this up like that. This is a great one for the children to have a go at, because you can make them scrunch things up when they're not normally supposed to, are they? Okay, so just be gentle when that comes out. Okay, and then what I can do is either put that straight on there. I always think for this sort of flower it looks a bit too obvious, so what I tend to do is fold that over. Okay, you can still keep it scrunched up so that it goes on the side. Okay, let me just put that down without my hands in the way. So there we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is going to put a bit of wet glue on. You could use some glue dots. Now bear in mind that this paper is wet, so if this is not going to dry straight away. Okay, so you want to be careful handling the leaves that you've added. Let's have those a bit further in. Lynn knows what's coming, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so there you've got your flower, which you can, you know, play around with. You could do this in a light colour and sponge all the edges. You get quite a nice carnation look by doing that. Okay, now one of the things that people say is that's all very well, but when it's in my card, on my card, it's too bulky for the card and the envelope. Which is a fair point. If you're doing it as a frame, which is really effective, decorate a frame and add some flowers around it. That's a really inexpensive gift for somebody. If you've got an old picture frame or one of the box frames from IKEA or somewhere like that, then you can decorate it up with the flowers. But if you're putting it on a card, one of the problems is the height of that flower. So you can solve that really easily by taking an acrylic block like so and flatten it as if you're flattening a fly, and then you get a flower which is about half the depth. Now you can, if you want to sort of, you know, put it into position a little bit more as you want it. Okay, so you can fold this bit up in. Okay, if you don't want to see the brad, you could cover the brad up. Bring all these layers in and then just squish it down like so, and then you get a flat flower. Okay, so I hope you like that little one, little rose. And then I've got one more to do, so I'm hoping that's going to give you some ideas. What is the time? Oh my goodness, I've been chatting far too long. Okay, so I'm going to do one more, which is a variation of this one, but makes a really big flower. So I'm just going to punch out find my circle punch again, put it away. I'm just going to use the 1/3/8 flowers. I know. Somebody showed this to us when we had a demonstration in Pinkies many years ago, and I think also it was done at Stampin' Up. Head office did a video and then splattered it. Very sad. Okay, I'm just going to punch out a whole load of circles. So I'm doing this just with small ones to save my save time and just also save the card. Let's do, how many is that? 8 or so. Yeah, it's quite therapeutic actually, flattening flowers, Linda. Just don't do it with real ones though. Look a bit bad. Okay. So this is how you could make a chrysanthemum or something similar. I'm just working my way around. There we go. Number of petals really doesn't matter. 8, 10, 15, however you want, however many you want to make a really big flower. Okay, so I've got my punch circles here. I'm going to bring back my sheet here. Yeah, exactly. Next time you feel like bettering, somebody say, I've got to go make some flowers. Okay, so I'm going to use my spritzer again and spritz these. And for this design you want them really wet. Like so. I appreciate you can't see all of, you can't really see that getting wet, apart from the fact they go a bit darker. Okay, let's turn them over, do the other sides. Got 2 in there, yes, I thought I had. So you do need water for flowers to grow. Okay, I'm going to save one and wet these. I might need to wet these again because they're it's quite warm in my windowsill. Okay, and what you're going to do is scrunch these up. Now there's various ways of doing this. More recently I've seen people use a bone folder and put it in the middle and just turn to make a little cone. I'll show you that. Okay, so you can do that. So sort of fold it in the middle and then turn it. Now you can do this with some really big circles. I've just chosen small ones. Okay, if it doesn't fold very well, then wet it again. You could also use a pokey tool, something like that. Just be careful you don't pierce yourself in the middle. Okay, so you're making sort of little cones. And you can do them with tweezers as well. Curl them up. So can you see? Now, what day is it today? Wednesday. So tomorrow I'm going to be doing some punch art, which is where you make figures from punched shapes. Well, that's one of the definitions of it. And then Friday, which is my fun Friday, which is suitable for beginners who don't have equipment like punches. I'm going to be making flowers just from pieces of paper, so cutting out simple shapes and making flowers. So let me move this one out of the way. Oops, I've lost a petal on the floor. It's gone onto my table. Okay, so for this you've basically got your flowers scrunched up, okay, like that. So you've got like little cones, for want of a better description. Let me move these out of the way because I want to use my mat. Okay, so this is our silicone mat. great for working on, and if you're not very good with glue, you can have one of these when you're working just normally with cards and things like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a basic circle, which is one of my pieces, and cover it with glue. Now, if you wanted to make a lot of these, my recommendation would be to use a glue gun, because that sets almost instantly. This one we're going to have, it will need a bit of time for it to set. So you may not see the finished thing. But what you can do is just place the flowers at 90 degrees. So you can place them face up like so. And then you're going to squish the bottom where the glue is. Okay. Now I'm going to have to hold this for a while. So if you think of any questions while I'm doing this, then ask away. Because I know this won't set in the time that we, you don't need to sit here watch me put these petals in. So basically all you're doing is putting these little cones. Oh, it does, yes, I'll show you how easy it comes off. And basically you're building up the flower. So I don't know if you can see how that's going to look. Obviously they're all a bit flat at the minute. Hi Alison, lovely to see you. So these make great carnations. Okay, what I will do is when this is finished, is I will finish one off for you and post it. I can show you a similar one that I practiced with yesterday. So basically what you're doing is putting these flowers in like individual petals onto your base. Now I know that doesn't look like very much. Oh, and I can't find my sample of it either. Sorry. But once that has dried, what you can do is squish all of these layers in to make a full flower. So I say it is quite difficult with wet glue. I would definitely recommend a hot glue gun. But you can do it with wet glue, but you just have to wait a bit longer. Now what you could do is scrunch all the pieces up and then let them dry before you attach them. Because remember, these pieces are wet, so I'm sticking wet paper with wet glue. Okay, I appreciate that doesn't look very exciting, but I promise you, you can build that up really large and get a fantastic carnation. So I will do a larger one for you. Let me show you, Linda, how the glue comes off here. So this is our snail. And it doesn't want to stick on it because it's silicone matte. Let me see if I can force it on here. No. So it's not even sticking to the mat. No, I don't get flustered, Marlene. It's only a piece of card. But even the wet glue, you can just literally wipe off. Okay, any glue at all will come off there, with the exception of super glue. So you can just reuse this over and over again. This is the same silicone mat as I used for the mirror stamping with the Stamparatus that I did last week. Okay, so it's called silicone mat, £5.50. Okay, let's see if these are, they're not really sticking because they're still too wet, but I will finish that one off and show you the final thing. Now this is also lovely if you do this with patterned paper. So if you have some designer series paper with patterns on, this can look really stunning. So I will try another one. I'll scrunch it up, let it dry, and then I'll glue it together and show you. So that's work in progress. So let me show you the ones that we finished. So we started with this one here. So just using the daisy punch, but making that a little bit more interesting by curling the petals. We've added one of these centres, and then we've created the leaves with the heart punch. This one here, oops, this one here, to create the leaves. That's the first one we did. The second one we did was this orchid style and that is using the balloon punch. This one here, our duet balloon punch, has 2 sizes of balloons, and then all I've done is punch the 2 sizes, cut off the little end of the balloons, although you don't have to because they are hidden anyway, and then gone around with some sponges and some ink around the edges, and then put those together, 3 and a 3. Okay. Oh, there's a spare one. And then we did the hydrangea style, this one here, and that was using the plain heart punch in the same way that we made the leaves. And then we had the rose, so you can either have a full rose or you can have a flat rose, which I did by pressing down with the block somewhat violently. But you can have it full as well if you want, so you'll get this sort of effect. So I hope today has been useful. I will finish off this design for you. Do have a go. I'd love to see your results. Feel free to pop any samples that you've done on Gemini Crafts page. There are literally hundreds of different designs of flowers that you can create with punches. And as I said, all dies, and not even necessarily actual punch shapes. So hearts, circles. You could even do this sort of style with a tag punch, like this. Okay, by stamping it, wetting it, and then rolling it up. Get exactly the same sort of thing, but with some interesting edges. So do have a play with the punches that you've got, and have some fun. Create some flowers. I will finish this one off and show you the finished results, and I'll pop that in the Facebook page. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that's been useful. And the sun is now shining, so I get to walk my dog very briefly before I crack on. If you want to contact me, thank you, Carol. If you want to contact me, you can just message here on the Facebook page. I still have spaces for my class in a box for this week. Booking closes on Sunday. If you want information about that, just message me and I will send you. And that is what it says, a class in a box. So you get a box through the post with all the components and things to make the designated cards, and you get online tutorials for all of the cards as well. Interested in that, just give me a message here. Thanks so much for joining me. Nice to see you, Carol, Molly, Linda, who else was here? Brenda, Yuta, Joe, Lynn, Tracy was here. So thank you everybody for joining me. I really appreciate your support. Hope you have a really good day. Look after yourselves, look after each other. Stay safe and keep crafting. Thank you. Bye-bye.